A single moment shifted the emotional temperature of the Zulu royal household when Queen Nozizwe stepped back into public view beside King Misuzulu. At a ritual many believed she would never attend again. In royal circles, absence is often louder than protest, and presence can rewrite months of tension in seconds. This was not just a return, it was a signal, loaded with history, symbolism, and consequence, unfolding in front of elders who read meaning into every step, every silence, every breath. What you're about to hear is not the version carried in headlines or reduced to palace gossip. This story goes beneath the surface of tradition, power, reconciliation, and survival inside one of Southern Africa's most watched monarchies. Stay with it until the end, because the final moments of this narrative reveal why this appearance may matter far more in the future than it did on the day itself. If you value deep context over noise, now is the moment to subscribe and commit to watching this all the way through, because the real story only becomes clear once all the pieces are on the table. Before we move deeper, take a second to lock this in. Subscribe, stay, and listen carefully. This isn't just about who stood where at a royal ritual. It's about what happens when tradition collides with modern pressure, and how one calculated return can quietly reset an entire power dynamic. Watch to the end, because the closing insight reframes everything you think you've just heard. The return of Queen Nozizwe did not happen by accident, nor was it impulsive. It arrived at a moment when the Zulu monarchy has been navigating internal fractures, legal disputes, and intense public scrutiny. Her presence at the ritual immediately raised questions among royal watchers and cultural custodians alike, because rituals are not neutral spaces. They are political, spiritual, and strategic arenas where legitimacy is reinforced or challenged. In Zulu custom, who attends matters almost as much as who performs the rite. Silence here would have spoken of distance. Presence spoke of something else entirely. To understand why this moment landed so heavily, you have to remember that Queen Nozizwe's previous withdrawal from public royal life created a vacuum. That vacuum was filled with speculation, competing narratives, and assumptions of permanent rupture. In monarchies, unresolved absence weakens the center. Her return, therefore, functioned like a stabilizing weight dropped carefully back into place. One appearance, many messages. That is how royal communication works. The ritual itself was not merely ceremonial pageantry. It was a deeply symbolic act tied to ancestral acknowledgement, continuity of leadership, and spiritual legitimacy. When Queen Nozizwe stood alongside King Misuzulu, it visually reinforced unity at a time when unity has been questioned. For traditionalists, this was a reassurance that the royal household remains aligned with ancestral expectations. For the public, it complicated the simplified narratives of conflict that had taken root. Meaning lives in moments like this. There is also the personal dimension that cannot be ignored. Royal marriages are often discussed as political arrangements, but they are lived by real people under extraordinary pressure. Queen Nozizwe's decision to appear publicly again required navigating emotion, dignity, and protocol simultaneously. That balance is difficult even in private life. In a monarchy, it becomes a performance scrutinized from every angle. Restraint here was deliberate. Every movement was measured. This return also subtly shifted the internal hierarchy of voices around the king. In royal ecosystems, proximity equals influence. Standing beside the monarch during a ritual is not a passive act. It repositions a figure within the inner symbolic circle. Without a single speech, Queen Nozizwe reasserted relevance. Presence does that, quietly, effectively. Public reaction revealed another layer. Supporters of the monarchy interpreted the moment as hopeful, even healing. Critics read it cautiously, aware that symbolism does not always translate into lasting change. Both reactions are valid because royal rituals operate on long timelines. Their effects are not instant. They ripple outward, shaping decisions and perceptions over months and years. This was a long-game move. It is also important to recognize that King Misuzulu himself gained from this moment. Leadership in traditional systems is not only about authority, it is about alignment with family, ancestors, and the people. A king standing alone at a ritual invites questions. A king supported by his queen projects continuity. Stability is not declared, it is shown. Behind the scenes, elders and advisors would have weighed this appearance carefully. Such returns are rarely spontaneous. They involve negotiation, timing, and agreement on boundaries. That makes the moment even more significant. It suggests not just personal reconciliation, but institutional calculation. Tradition adapts when survival demands it. As the ceremony concluded, what lingered was not spectacle but implication. The Zulu monarchy exists in a modern South Africa that watches, debates, and judges in real time. Every royal action now carries dual audiences, the ancestors and the public. Queen Nozizwe's return managed to speak to both without saying a word. That is rare. What followed in the days after was just as telling. The absence of public contradiction from within the royal house allowed the moment to settle. No rushed clarifications, no distancing statements. Silence again, but this time supportive. In royal communication, silence after presence often means consent. That detail matters. As we move closer to the end of this story, the key question is not whether this return solved every internal issue. It didn't. The real question is whether it reset the tone. And by all indications, it did. Tone shapes outcomes before decisions are even made. The final point to sit with is this: monarchies endure not by resisting change, but by absorbing it through ritual and symbolism. Queen Nozizwe's return was not about erasing the past. It was about repositioning the future. In traditional leadership, that distinction is everything. This moment will likely be referenced years from now, not for what was said, but for what was shown. A queen returned, a king stood supported. A ritual carried more than incense and tradition, it carried strategy. And in royal history, those are the moments that quietly change the direction of the crown.